Reserve Bank of India, which has imposed a penalty of 3.95 crores on Kotak Mahindra Bank and 12.19 crore on ICICI Bank for non-compliance with a few regulatory norms. Now, what are the charges? ICICI Bank was penalized for committing loans to companies where two of its directors sat on the board of these companies. The bank is also said to have engaged in marketing and selling non-financial products and showed negligent attitude towards reporting these frauds. This, of course, is as per RBI. Kotak Mahindra Bank was penalized for failing to conduct an annual review or due diligence of its service provider and for violating contact hour norms with customers. Remember, the contact hours are between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., not after 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. The bank also faced criticism for charging interest from disbursements due date rather than the actual disbursement date. A lot of charges there, but a penalty, of course, imposed on both Kotak Mahindra Bank and ICICI Bank. RBI setting a precedent that, look, even if it's a small norm, it is an important norm. As far as it's a norm, you have got to comply with it.
So to a layperson, I think, Shweta, for somebody like me, the story emerging from the Kotak Mahindra Bank and RBI's penalty, even though a small monetary amount of just 3.95 lakh crore rupees, not substantial for a bank as large as Kotak Mahindra Bank, but for me as a consumer, and I'm sure everybody out there who's listening to us watching this show right now would agree that there are these pesky calls which keep coming, and Kotak Mahindra is honestly not alone. So you're right, it could be a precedent being set by RBI that certain norms need to be complied with and are non-negotiable when it comes to compliance. Now, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. also, if you ask me, is a fairly long 12-hour window.
Good window.
So there must be some very, very enthusiastic employees who are working beyond the call of duty to meet the target set on them, to make those phone calls either early in the morning or late in the evening. But that is just one part of the story. I think when it comes to the interest levied by Kotak Mahindra Bank, again, very important, because those tons and tons of fine print that you receive every time you're opting for a loan from a bank, you don't really go through every single word of it. I think it's humanly next to impossible to really understand the import of everything which is written in those multiple reams of paper that you sign when you're taking a loan. So, and a loan amount gets sanctioned on a certain date, but perhaps the property that you intend to buy or the vehicle that you intend to buy would be available only 3 months, 6 months, 8 months later. And hence, if the interest starts accruing to you as a consumer right from the day that the bank decided to go ahead and offer that loan to you rather than the date on which the money actually hit your accounts, is obviously substantial. So it makes eminent sense, I think, for banks to be very, very clear that these little, fraudulent, bordering fraudulent activities of trying to profiteer on account of overcharging interest needs to, really come to an end right now. But if we were to look at, on the contrary, what has happened with ICICI Bank, this story, of course, is bad news for ICICI.
Before we move to ICICI, this is a very interesting consumer interest angle. So let's say I go and apply for a loan. The bank cannot charge interest from the date it decides to disburse, but from the actual day it has disbursed.
Yeah, so
a lot of people don't know that.
The bank may decide to lend out money to you in any case, but it's not subject to when you and your bank sign the documents that you will indeed avail a loan. Rather, it has to start from the date that the amount hits your account or hits the account of, whatever transaction you're making. And that has to be the start date, which is fairly obvious. I mean, there's nothing new in this. But there have been lapses reported in the statements of financial year 22.
That. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why banks get away with it.
So, to be honest, the RBI circular is silent on how many such cases have emerged. Perhaps there is just one case. Perhaps there are just a handful of cases, and it could be, it could be an oversight. So, let's not read into too much of corporate governance potential issues with Kotak Mahindra Bank at this stage. But I think even if it has happened with 1 customer or 5 customers or 100 customers, it is an issue that banks need to be very, very cognizant of not committing in the future. Now, if we were to move to ICICI Bank, then the lapses seem to be a little more grave when it comes to corporate governance. Now, the fact that 2 directors on the board of ICICI Bank are also on the board of companies or a company that ICICI Bank has lent to and has not reported to the regulator, which is RBI, then it definitely does not, bode well for a bank, which in any case, after Chanda Kocher's exit and the controversy that raked around Chanda Kocher's exit and lending loan to
And the quid pro quo.
and the quid pro quo. So I think, overall it's something that ICICI Bank definitely needs to take seriously. It will. Again, 12.19 lakh crore rupees. Not a big sum
Crores.
of money for crore rupees. Not a big sum of money for a bank as large as ICICI Bank. But yeah, at least you know that the risk assessment report that banks file are being read by RBI, and these matters are being investigated and looked into. So banks obviously need to be a lot more cautious about reporting whatever they have undertaken as activities during the year.
Absolutely, and RBI there setting a precedent saying, look, we are watching even if it's one case or two cases, because we don't know how many number of cases. That detail has not come out just as yet from RBI's, the press release that was put out on the website. But we know that penalized, both banks have been penalized to a point where Kotak Mahindra Bank has to pay about 2 to 3 crores, ICICI about 12 crore rupees in penalty in days to come.